Lizzie here from Lizzy Curtis Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to make one of the flags for the bunting called Alice. And Alice is a super pattern. That's what it'll look like a little bit. We're going to get a new photo for the front. This is just the mock-up for the filming today. But this is the pattern called Alice, and for my lovely online sewing group members, they'll get that on the 1st of April. For everybody else, you'll get it in the shop from the 1st of May, if you can wait that long. This month I'm releasing 3 new patterns for the members, and which means there'll be 3 new patterns going into the shop. And if you look behind me, you can see there is the second little pattern, and that's a foundation paper piece little tea mat there with again the little design on there, which we'll have a look at in a sec. And the other pattern is this one here, which is a super little quirky cushion, and that's our 3rd pattern. So you can see all 3 patterns. Now Alice is like I said, bunting, so let me just show you. We'll never be able to get it all in shot, but let me see if I can get some of it in shot. So here we go. So we've got 5 pieces, and you can see 5 pieces. I'm making a 6th piece today. So we're looking at the kind of wonky mushroom house. It kind of goes with the theme of the wonky square templates that I launched this month. So you can see what they look like. Absolutely fantastic. A little bit of free motion, don't be scared of that. But this is meant to be for like tea parties. We're looking towards summer. We're looking at picnics. Do you know what? Any time of year that you need a pretty little piece of bunting like this. Now, I have spaced mine apart, as you can see, and all the measurements are in the pattern, but you might want to have them close up. So if I was to hold up the 2 like this, for instance, you might want them closer together. Now I'm going to let you decide whether you want them closer together or not, or whether you follow the pattern. But my theory is that if you do the 5, now we're going to be 6 today, like this, with them spaced out equally, you've got a longer piece of bunting. So I suppose it depends where it's for. Depends if it's going to be going under maybe the dresser in the kitchen, or maybe it's going to be outside on the fence, something like that. So you can decide what sort of size you actually create this with. But every single flag, so that's one of these triangles is called a flag, and every single one of those has the wonky mushroom house on it. And of course, if you want to add extra stitching or extra flowers or that sort of thing, that's up to you. I'm giving you the basics to do the initial design, and then you can take it to whatever level you want. And all 3 designs, so the 2 here, this is, I'm going to get this right, this is Anna, the cushion is Anna, and the little mat there, which I know you can't see very well, but you can watch the video for it, that's called Aggie. So we've got Aggie, Anna and Alice. Absolutely fabulous. And so those are our patterns for the members for this month of April, or for the shop in May. You can either decide to wait for that, and maybe you'll see this later in the year or even next year, but you'll know that will be in the shop from the 1st of May 2023. Had to think then. So I'm going to show you how to make one of the flags, and then we're going to join it to the end of this one here. So I'll just pop that to one side. I'll pop it over there so it's out of my way. Don't let me forget it's there. So if we look on the overhead, we can have a quick look at, let me turn this over. So that's how the pattern looks. You can see how that looks. So obviously I'm going to put a different picture in there. I'm going to actually set this up really lovely for you. But this is the wonky mushroom house that we're going to create. And I've already created one fully already, but I want to take you through the step-by-step process of actually getting these created. Now, your pattern is fully and comprehensive. So in the pattern, let me just bring that back in. You get the flag template, and you get the wonky mushroom house actually positioned as I would think it should be. You can put all of these things the other way around if you want to, depending on how you trace them and how you place them. Certainly the flowers can be changed around, and the chimney pot as well. And then you've also got the templates, and yours will have letters of the alphabet on, so you can see straight away this could be A, B, C, D, etc. As I said, this is our preliminary pattern, especially for the filming. So this is the template we need to work from, and these are all the bits that you need. So we've got the chimney pot, the roof, the main body of the house, the sets of flowers that sort of sit here, and the 3 that sit here. You can change that if you want to. You've got 2 doors, you've got the big door, and then the little door goes over the top, and one of these windows goes there, and then obviously the roof comes down, sits over the top, and the 2 windows go over the top. So you've got all the components you need. So you're going to get some Bonder web. You know what? There are loads of different products out there on the market that you can use. There's Bonder web, there's steamer seam, there's heat and bond. I'm using Bonder web. I must admit I prefer heat and bond, but I've got a lot of Bonder web to use up. So all you're going to do, we'll do the roof because that's the last one I've got to cut out of the ones I've already prepared. So all you're going to do is trace this onto your Bonder web. Now, although this is spaced out, in my mind that's spaced out correctly for cutting out of the paper. You can of course move everything along if you want to, because you need to give everything a gap all the way around. So when you cut it out, you're literally going to give it at least 1/4 inch all the way around. Now don't be worried about being completely 100% accurate on this. This sort of design really lends itself to that quirkiness. So if you want to do a little bit more of a different design, maybe you want rectangle windows instead of arch windows, well, this is the time to do it. So just draw with a pencil on the paper side of your Bonder web or whatever product you use, and then you're ready to go. You're then going to cut it out. Let me just get my bigger scissors, otherwise we'll be here all day. I'm just going to switch my iron on so we're ready to go. And you're going to cut out each of the pieces. So all of those pieces that you'll have traced, so don't do this one at a time like me. This is to show you how to draw it on. I'm sure you know, but it's good to cover. If anybody has never done this before, then it's good to sort of cover this so we all know what we're doing. So there's the little roof part, and what you need to do next is to attach it to your fabric, the chosen fabric that you've decided to use. So you need to attach this to the wrong side of the fabric. So if I bring a piece of fabric up, I've got lots of scraps here, and they're all, well, you can see, look, I've really used and abused my fabric here. But this is the sort of print that you want to sort of try and pick out of your stash, because even with the smaller designs, and we'll see that in a minute, there's parts of this that you can pick up, and you can see there I've kind of cut into my fabric to get like a little sprig of flowers here. So with the roof, we might want to have this as the centre of the roof. So if we turn our fabric over, you can still see the design from the back. Iron this so your fabric is lovely and flat. Ironing is your best friend when it comes to stitching. So iron your fabric first so it's nice and warm, and then what I might want to do is to capture that little sprig of flowers in the middle of my roof. So let's just do it like that. So you're ironing on the paper side again, with the glue side facing down to the wrong side of your fabric. Okay, and it's Bonder web and Heat and Bond, any of those makes are really easy. You don't need to struggle getting that glued down at all. It's a very quick process, and then all you're going to do is cut this out. And I've got another one to do, but we might as well do this one. So cut out as best you can. If you go off the line, do you know what, it really doesn't matter, because again, this is your design, and we call them wonky mushrooms because it allows for you to be a little bit wonky if you want to. So we'll save this, because even though you think, oh gosh, that's scrap, there's lots of pieces on here. Look at, there's a little sprig of flowers here, and I could use this as part of a window. Lots of ways to use it. And then you've got one little piece there, and all you need to do, give it a little scratch on the back, but do this when it's cold. Wait for your fabric to cool down, and then just peel the back off. And when you do scrape with your scissors, just make sure that you don't go through onto the fabric. Just make sure you don't scrape it so hard. So that is now ready for gluing, and if you have a look at it, it's a really, really lovely, pretty little roof of your wonky mushroom. So yeah, that's absolutely perfect. So I'll pop that to one side, and I'll bring in my applique mat. Now, so you can see I've already got a house ready to go. We'll have a look at that in a second. So these are all my components here to make up my lovely mushroom house. So let me just cut this one out again. I could use the one that I've just done, but I had this one planned, so let's just do it. And you'll notice that I keep my scissors kind of exactly where they are, and it's my left hand that's moving everything around. And if you've done applique before, I'm sure you work the same, that you keep your scissors really still and just move the fabric with your other hand. So there's our piece ready to go. Let's just scrape it again, really quite softly, don't go mad, because you might scrape the fabric, as I said. So now, if you've got an applique mat, they are fantastic because they will allow you to create your design before committing it to fabric. So for instance, this is my fabric ready to go, my bunting, my flag, and I've got my piece. It's almost like you're making a badge, and I'm ready to iron that down. But to get to that sort of stage, you may want to, you know, pop your fabric down and do this and piece it on there and move things around and all that. That's absolutely fine. But to create a one solid piece is even better, in my opinion. So if you can get an applique mat, excuse me, then they are incredibly useful. So let's build up our design. Now, you could, if you wanted to, flip. So where you've got the mushroom stalk there, when you go to trace it, you could flip that if you wanted to. You could flip it on your printer, or you can trace from the other side of your paper. So you would need to have a light box, and you would need to turn it. I know you're not going to see a thing, but you're going to turn it that way. Have a light box underneath, and you can see you get a different shape. So there's the first little part, and then we're going to create the rest of it. So I'm going to place my big door down. I'm going to use my stiletto, and then I'm bringing in my second door. So we've got two doors. You don't have to, but I think it looks quite nice. And use a pin or your stiletto to keep these things in place. I just find it much, much better. And although it looks fiddly, it really isn't. I'm just, that's just me making it look fiddly. So I've got one window with a flower in it. So let's put that down like that. So you can see how that's been fussy cut. I've got two little windows here. So you can see the sort of fabric you need for this is definitely small ditzy prints, okay? Because otherwise you lose definition of your fabrics, your design. There's the chimney pot. Now we could put the chimney pot the other side. Let's just turn that around because one side is a little bit flatter than the other. Let's just move that around. There we go. It needs to go underneath. Let's pop it underneath. That doesn't want to move, does it? There we go. Do it at a quirky angle because then it all goes under. Move these around till you're happy. And then we've got the flowers. So you've got the big flower here, and again we could put it on the other side. Let's just do that. So one set of flowers there, and then we've got three flowers for the other side. And you'll see how I've picked up the colours of the fabric, and I've fussy cut again. And also I've got the green at the top of the bush here. Well, actually that's the middle, so we can pop that on there. And you want these just to overlap onto the main stem. There we go. I'm happy with that now. So you can see everything is overlapping. Everything is central as best as I can do it. You might want to maybe tilt the roof a little bit more so it's even more quirky. But I'm loving how that looks. Everything will be attached. So if we get our iron, we can commit that to glue together now. And I'm just going to pop my iron over the top. It doesn't affect this at all. That's why it's been created. So let's just push that down. Now at this stage, you may well see the different fabrics underneath. Like maybe you'll see the stem of this coming underneath. So you won't see it once it's been stitched, funnily enough. It kind of disappears. But I want you to consider the fabric choices you're using, because you will see it otherwise. So let's just do that again. Just make sure it's all glued down, especially the little pieces like the flowers at the side and the chimney stack, the chimney pot. And if we look at that one, you can see we've done the reverse of that. So I'll keep that iron on just for a second longer. So now we've actually got a choice of two. I'm going to stick with the one that I chose before. You know, sometimes I change my mind. So while it's hot, just be careful how you lift that off. Personally, I would leave it normally till it's absolutely cold, and then it lifts off beautifully. Just make sure that we've caught that chimney pot, which we have, and there we are, and that will actually glue down onto the flag like that. Oh, that does look pretty. I'm going to keep that one now rather than that one. So yeah, so that's our new one. So I've shown you the pattern that you're going to get for the flag, and let's just take our applique mat away. And what I've done is actually put my H640 on the back, and it's a very nice lightweight wadding. You could use 80-20, you can use what you like, polyester, whatever you like, but you don't want it too bulky, because we want to try and maintain this point down here. So once you've got it lined up and you're fairly happy with it, and if you want to, I'll just bring these in, you could compare to how that looks. Do you see? So you want to try and make sure that it's going to sit about the same place. I think I'm happy with that. I also want you to notice how we've got the smoke coming from the chimney stack there. We've also got a line drawn here to give us the depth of the mushroom. I'll do that in a sec. And I've also added things like the door handle and the window frames as well. So we'll do all that with the stitching. And we've got quite a nice little point there on the flag, so we want to try and maintain it. So let's pop that back again. So I think I'm okay with that, so I'm going to glue that down. So just be careful, especially if you're using a polyester wadding. You might want to put the wadding on afterwards, but you just want to put the heat on that and make sure that you catch everything down. If you don't glue this down properly, when you come to machine it, you might find that it lifts, and that's not such an easy thing for then to get a nice bit of clean stitching. But just so be careful you don't scorch your fabric. Just little light movements just to get that glued down. And I think I always test it, look, just to make sure. Things like the chimney stack, chimney pot, just make sure all of these points are glued down. Makes a huge difference. Okay, so now we've got that stitched, glued, we're going to stitch it. Now, I do suggest you don't use black, but a dark thread is good. So a dark thread such as a navy blue, or a dark brown, or a dark grey is absolutely perfect, because I think a black is too much, it's too stark. So I'll just bring my machine in. So I've got a machine set up today for free motion, and I've got my regular machine set up for just because we're going to do some zigzagging and what have you. So this machine is purely for my free motion. Now all you're going to do is set it up for free motion. You mustn't be afraid of free motion. Please, 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 please practice before you commit to your design. Now, you could wear special gloves with silicone tips so you can hold your fabric. I like to do that, but I can never remember to do it, and I'll only remember when I finish my project and I think, well, I didn't know where my gloves. You could buy a slippy mat, so the bed of your machine is really slippy to allow you to move that fabric around. Or you can just get some regular household polish and polish the bed of your machine so it's nice and slippery. You need to set it to free motion, so if you can, drop your feed dogs, okay, if you can. If you can't drop your feed dogs, then just put your stitch length on 0. It should work perfectly fine, okay. So this machine, it might be 50 years old, but it does have the feed dogs. You can drop them, so it's really handy for that. So all we're going to do is just start working on the free motion. You must, like I say, you mustn't be afraid of it. It's a nice little thing to do, but please practice and get your sharp scissors ready, because we're going to stop and start a bit. So I start with the needle in, just so it's got an anchor, and I'm going to put my foot down. And then we're just going to go. Now, if you were doing some really posh quilting, you might want to lift up the bottom thread and feed that through so it doesn't get caught. But we're just doing mushroom houses, so I'm okay not to do all of that. But if you were being taught, you would be told to bring up your bottom thread, and then you can always thread those threads onto a needle, take them through to the back of your work and finish them off at the back, and it looks lovely and neat. I'm going to let you decide if that's for you. So all we're going to do now is just start the machine up, hopefully. Let's switch it on. That really helps. Oh, it is on. And then we're just going to start machining. I want you to do just little bits at a time. I don't want you to worry about too much about stitch length. The stitch length is going to be down to you, of how quickly you move your fabric and how quickly you machine, okay? This is why I need you to practice. You can move your fabric around like I will be doing. If you were professional, you would keep your fabric almost static, okay? And you would learn to do stitching to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west with your fabric exactly where it is. But we're not doing that today. You move the fabric. So let's go. So I'll get so far, I'm going to put the needle in, and then I'm going to move my fabric. Now we're only doing one row of stitching. Normally with free motion, I'll say to you, we need at least 3 rows, but not with this. Just one row. And what else we haven't done is we haven't drawn that line across the bottom of the mushroom, but we'll do that in a second. So let's just go across the mushroom, the roof. We'll just take your time. And then we're coming back to the beginning. Now what you could do, put your needle in always. You could, if you wanted to, do a couple of little stitches from where you started, just to secure your threads. So let's take that off the machine for the moment and just snip your threads. Don't worry about the back of it, we can tidy that up, but have a look at that. So we've done the roof. What we need to do is this line here. So let's quickly go to the overhead. I'll just move that out of the way because we need to get that done, and you need to see how that's done. So, and don't forget, we are machining on the side that's had the wadding. So I just want you to, with a heat erasable pen, is to draw that line in. And if you're not happy with it, you know you can always iron this line out. That's not bad. But you can iron the line out and start again, okay? But that's the line we're going to follow. Now, if you're a little bit pedantic and you need this to be absolutely perfect, you'll notice that the black line of the stitching finishes there and the black line of your stitching finishes there. So maybe you want to take that stitching down to that corner so it matches this line coming up. But it is only a mushroom house, so let's just keep it simple, shall we? So let's just bring the machine back in. I can bring it in over my mat. There we go. And we're just going to do that little bit of free motion across the kind of like the underneath of the mushroom, isn't it? So I'll try and keep my hands out of the way. So I'm just going to go backwards and forwards twice on the spot just to secure that thread, and then I'm going to take it across that line. So I'm following that line. When I come to the edge of the mushroom, I'm just going to go back a stitch or just a little way, and then I'm going to raise my needle, lift up my foot and just hop across my mushroom. Come down, just a couple of little stitches, so tiny, not even, well, a millimetre I'd say. So that's quite a bit of control. Coming up to the top there, again I'm just going to go back a fraction, frontwards a fraction, and then just lift up my needle and release. So let's just have a look at that in detail. So I'm just going to snip and snip. I'm not worried about the back, I can snip that later. So let's just get that front one done so it looks at least a little bit neater. So you can see I've got hopped across the mushroom stem there. Let's just clip that thread out of the way. And you can see now that we've got that line going across. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do the two windows and the chimney stack, and then we'll come down and we'll do the main body of the mushroom. Now it's quite possible that you don't have a fancy machine that cuts your thread, so it's good that you're seeing me do this on a very, very old machine. You want a lovely sharp needle. I want you to change your needle to a 12, something like that. You don't need a big thick needle or anything like that, but you do want a sharp needle. Tiny, tiny little movements with your hands. Don't worry about stitch length. So once we've got back to that corner again, and hopefully you can see some of this, we're going to go back along that bottom row to halfway. And then we're going to come up to the top, down a little way, and we're going to do a cross to make the window. So let's just take that off the machine so you can see. But I know you're limited to how much you can see. So let's just show that to you close up. So you can see that I started in this corner here. I went up, down, across, back to the centre, up, down, across and across, and finished there. So hopefully you can see how that was done. So let's do the other window, and then we'll just do the chimney stack. Start with your needle down. As I said, just take your time. So just follow the arch of the window, and by all means draw yourself a line. Why not? So back to the corner where we started, and back along, up to the top, down a little way, and then across to do the cross of the window. So that's the second window done, and I'll show you that when I finish doing the little chimney pot. So with the chimney pot, to lift your foot up so you can move your threads. So with the chimney pot, I want you to start with the needle down just on the edge of your roof fabric here. And then you're going to go up, along, and down. And just do a little stitch on the spot just to lock that thread so it doesn't come undone. So let's take this off the machine and I'll show you what that looks like. I'll just cut my ends so it looks a little bit neater. Let's cut these bits off. So let's just show you that close up. Okay, so if you have a little look, so we've done that window there, start at that corner, round across and we did it, as I said, explained before. Same with this one. Start at that corner, around, across, back to the middle, up, down and across. And then with the chimney stack, do you see it's just that shape there? We haven't gone across it, we've just gone from the start of the roof fabric up, across and down. So hopefully, if that's zoomed in nicely, which I'm sure John will do, you'll be able to see what that looks like. And you can see that the stitches are not regular, they're all different sorts of lengths, but that's because I'm in control of it. And if you had every single stitch perfect, it would be done by a computer program or a gadget that's on your machine. But this is all guided by you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come down the sides of the house. We're going to finish stitching there. We're going to hop across to this bit, and I'm going to stitch all the way across, and then I'm going to start here and go up to the roof. And that's the next plan. Okay, so we're going to do that now. Now all of the designs in the trio of patterns that you get this month are all done the same way. I shall repeat it all for every single pattern, just in case you decide that one of the patterns is not for you and you miss that part of the tuition. At least you'll see it every single video. So let's just stop there. One tiny stitch back just to lock that stitch in. I'm going to lift up my foot and I'm going to swing it down to the bottom of the house, which is here. By lifting up the foot, it releases the tension in the tension discs and allows me to pull the threads. So it's really handy. So needle down just in front of the bush there. Tiny little back stitch, and this is all controlled by you. And then I'm going across the bottom of my house. Tiny little back stitch, and that's that bit. And now I'm going to swing up to this bit here. So we're going to go up the side of the house. So foot up to release your thread tension, foot down to lock everything in place, needle in, and then we're just going to do a tiny little back stitch, just one stitch, that's all you need, and then we're going to come up the side of the house. So there's no race to this. I mean, you probably go faster than me. I mean, I'm just having to show you, hopefully, how to do the little houses. They are cute. They really are cute. So let me just break my threads. Let me just cut my threads here, then I'll show you what I've done. So there's no mystique. So let me, hold that up again. All these threads at the back I'll cut in a second. So if we have a look at it now, you'll see that I came down the side here and I stopped. I hopped over to here and I went all the way across, and then I went from here up to here. So the next stage is to do the door. So we're going to stitch on the outside of the door, the larger piece of door, and then I'm going to stitch the inside of the door and put my door handle in. It's all free motion, so let's do that. So foot down, needle in, a couple of little stitches to, well, one stitch, really one stitch, that's all I want you to do, because we don't great big knots and lumps of thread, not really. So just go round the side of that big house piece there, all the way around, along the bottom, along the short little door, all the way around the edge of that, come down to the bottom, and then I'm going to go up again, just bring my needle in and just move it on the spot to get a door handle, and then just pop a little window in like that. So let me show you what I've done. Let's cut the thread so it looks a bit neater. So if we have a look at it now, you can see I went up and around the outside of the door, then I went up and round on the smaller door, put a little door handle in here, and then put a little window at the top of the door frame there. Okay, so now I'm going to do the window exactly how we did the window here, and then I'm going to go around the flowers. Now the flowers are quite fiddly because they're tiny, so you can either leave them as is, so it's not too complicated for you, or give it a go. See how you get on. But let's do the window first. So needle in, foot down, threads out of the way if you can. So little back stitch to start, and if you need to turn it, because I just want to get a bit more fabric in my hands here. So come round the top of the window, across, we're going to go back to the middle, up to the top, down, and then across. And you're literally, that's what you're doing, you're making a cross. One little stitch to secure. So let me show you this. I don't think normally you would take this out of the machine so many times as I've done, but I want you to see each stage so you can look back at it. So there's the little window there. We've done exactly the same as that, and really that's the same as that as well. So now I'm going to do the flowers, and I'll do all 4 flowers and then I'll show you, and then it's done. On the cushion we've added other things. I'll maybe show you that before you go. So needle in, foot down. This is a little bit more fiddly, but by now you should have warmed up. And I would just raise your pressure just a little bit here now, because you're moving your fabric quite a bit more to follow the lines of the flower. And like I said, this is a little bit more fiddly. So I've done one, so now I'm going to hop over and do this one. So foot down, needle in. By putting the needle in, you are making sure that when you start, you're in the right place. Now, I'm not saying for a moment that my free motion is perfect, but it's not bad. Now again, lift the foot. But like I say, I've been doing this for donkey's years. If you're new to free motion, I really urge you to practice, 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 practice. Or do as much as you can on a straight stitch. A lot of this could be just straight stitch. Certainly the roof and the main body of the mushroom, and the underneath part could all be done with straight stitch. So in other words, with your regular foot on, feed dogs up. So like I say, I would come up with the speed now, because you're moving your fabric quite a bit. So let me just cut this. Let me cut the end so it looks a little bit prettier. Let's get my little scissors in there. These are the best scissors in the world. They're Karen K. Buckley. They are an investment, but by golly, they're super. I'll cut the back in a sec. So if I lift that up, now you can have a little look-see. Let's get those bits off there. There you go. So now you can see how I've done the flowers. So with my stitching, I've made it look even more like a flower. So, I mean, and this is tiny, so I really want you to decide whether that's something you want to tackle or not. If you love your free motion like I do, you'll enjoy it as a challenge. If you don't, then just leave it unstitched, or do some French knots on there and lift it up that way. But then that is our house done. How easy was that? So I'm going to trim all the threads at the back, and I'll come back to you with just my regular machine. So, got my special machine in, because all I want to do is a zigzag, but I've got one machine set up for free motion for all 3 videos, and I've got the big machine out so I can do a nice straight stitch and a zigzag in the right colour cotton. So there's our little house done. So let's just put it on the overhead so you can see. Let's pop that out the way. So there we are. So there's our house done. It looks absolutely fantastic. And by all means, in fact, I forgot to do the smoke. So, that's what you need to do. You need to do the smoke. like that. I will have to do that by hand now. So do the smoke coming out of the chimney, and then that's you done. And all we need to do now is to actually make this up. So it's going to be right sides together. Now I have used a lightweight calico here, or it's muslin in the US, but you need a nice plain fabric. So don't go for anything too fancy, because what you want to do, you want to see the house. You don't want to see necessarily the bunting fabric. However, what you could do is pick up one of these fabrics. It could be any one of these, and you can actually make another bunting flag to go next to it in that fabric, for instance, which would complement it beautifully. And I've used like a natural seeded calico here, so maybe you'd want to choose a creamy colour. So I'll leave that for you to decide how you're going to do it, but it could look quite pretty. So if we bring the big machine in, all we're going to do is right sides together. Let me keep showing you on the overhead actually. And if you pin the two layers together, we're doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So let's just get these lined up. And another pin in there just to make sure we got that all secure. So there's your two flags put together, and we're just going to go from the top here down to the point and up to the top. We're not machining that straight edge across there. So you're doing the V really of the flag. So let's pop it under the machine, get my foot control in. Doesn't want to play at all. Okay, so we need a little back stitch because that's where we're going to turn through. And a 1/4 inch seam allowance, as I said. Just want to make sure that I've got that caught. And try and keep that point of the bunting. You'll never get it. When you turn it through, you will lose that point. It'll be a rounded point because you've still got the bulk there of the seams, however well we cut this now. So a little back stitch there. Let's do another one and cut. Just going to check that to make sure I have caught it. Yeah, that's fine. And just make sure you have caught it well, because you don't want it to split. So there's our bunting stitched together now. So now we need to trim this really well. So I would just take the point off, and you're about 2 millimeters away from your stitching. And then I want you to cut again. So pop your scissors in, and I want you to take that up and round that off. When I say round it off, you're just taking that bulk out of there. So again, if I do it from this side, you're coming in and you're keeping it close to that stitching by about 2 millimeters, or maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So if you have a look at that, you can see what it looks like. And do a small stitch as well. Take your stitch length down to a 2. So now we've got that lovely point, we need to turn it through. So this is where we need a nice blunt turning tool, so a blunt one. A knitting needle is really good. I use this one, and it's a size 8 millimeter, and it's absolutely perfect on the end here. Either or, this happens to be a turning tool, so whatever is good for you. Put your finger in there and get that pointed out. We'll need to give it an iron. So one of these flags are going to have a lovely hand-stitched embroidered piece of smoke. Don't you forget to do it. Why are you shouting at the screen? You haven't done the smoke, Lizzie. And then be very careful about pushing this. Like I say, it's a rounded point. You'll never get anything better. And I think that's lovely, but we need to give it an iron, so let's just pop that out of the way. Let's pop the iron on. You want to be really careful you don't scorch this now. It would be easy to do that. So let's just get all my black bits off. Turn that over. There we are. So So with the heat of the iron, we're going to lose the my smoke effect. But just get that seam really nice. Get the heat of your fingers on there, give it a little finger press, just roll it to get that seam out. You don't want a funny wonky point here, so you want to get those seams out, so just roll them between your finger and your thumb. And I'm going to do it from this side. There we go, happy with that. And if you've got some best press, or if you've got some of Abigail's Sew Flat, which is absolutely super, give it a little shake before you spray. And it's such a lovely fine mist, but it gives the most gorgeous press. So that's Sew Flat from Avid Crafts. So we'll do it from this side very carefully. And of course you can add beads to this, and you can put some embroidery on it. Just be amazing whatever you do. So it depends what it's for, who it's for, will depend on how you make it. So now what we need to do is to put the flag onto our binding, our string if you like, that's holding all our flags in place. Now what you'll need to do is just cut off your triangles. So if I just bring this over here for you to see, you need to cut off your triangles or your dog ears of your flag, so you've got a nice neat straight edge like that. So you've cut those bits off there, and you want to insert it into your binding. So we've made the mark here. In the pattern it tells you how far away it is from this one to this one, and I'm just going to place it in there so I get it in the right position. But we're going to stitch the first one from the back. So if we leave it like that, so you can see how that looks, there we go. And then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to hold all the raw edges and flip it over. So I'm just holding on to it, flip it over, and you've got the fold of your binding 1/4 inch in from the raw edge of your flag. And then we'll just pop a pin in there to hold it, and then I'll just check and make sure it's still sitting on its mark. So you can see now what that looks like. So there's the mark there, and it's in the perfect position. So if you can see that, that's your marker. So if I flip that over and pop a pin in, okay, and then again on the other end, let's just make sure it's all lined up. There we go. You know I'm going to take the pins out almost immediately. But what we want to do is just to make sure that the binding is attached to the back of the flag, and when we flip that over, that binding will go to the front. So it might be something that you need to think about, but when you're stitching all 6 flags on, actually it's a lot easier than trying to add one on. So that's how you want it to look. Okay, now this binding, it is bias binding. You don't need bias binding, regular binding is fine. When it's folded, it's 3/4 of an inch from that crease to that outside crease there. If I open that up, it's 3/4 of an inch from that fold to that fold, and then you just need a little bit folded in. I think it probably just about meets in the middle, but really you want 1/4 inch from the raw edge to the crease line here, to that fold line. Okay, so if it's commercially bought binding, then you're fine. If you're making it yourself, you need just to be aware of that it's, if I show you here, there is a slight gap in the middle there, but that is 1/4 inch, which is what you want. Okay, so let's bring the machine in. So while it's still on straight stitch, we're going to attach our binding to the flag. So let me just take that out. So we're joining all of the layers together. And it doesn't matter if you go slightly over the ends, okay? So let's have another quick look on the overhead. So that's how it looks. If I turn it this way, maybe that's going to be better for you. So you can see how that binding sits on there. And I'm just going to measure that again for you so I know that we're right. Yeah, so that is that binding, that fold of the binding is 1/4 inch in. And then when we fold it over, you see what that is, because it's commercially bought. It's actually 3/8. Yeah, so it is 3/4 of an inch when it's flat. I hope that makes sense. Not very good sometimes at explaining things, which is, you know, really bad. So let's just snip the ends of the threads off, make them nice and neat. So what we want to do now is, now that we've added that 6th flag on, what we need to do is to fold over our binding so it comes to the front. And of course you can then get your clips. Let's just get a few clips in here. Bring over the middle first, it's always easiest. And just clip that in place. A little rogue piece of black thread there. So you want the fold of your fabric to go to the stitch line. You do not want to see your stitch line, so just make sure. And you can always trim it back if it's a little bit bulky, but that will go. That will go. There we go. That's fine. And then up this end as well. And really that's just for your benefit, so you've got a visual. I'll immediately take them off. So then what we're going to do is that we're going to start the zigzag from there and go all the way across, holding all that front of the binding down, and then we're going to finish off the tail. So we're going to fold our binding in half. I've already ironed it, so it should be easy. I've ironed it so it's going to fold in half, and we're going to take it right to the end to make a neat finish to our binding. Right. Let's just set up the zigzag. So once you've worked out what the zigzag is for you, then just make a note of it. And by all means test it. So get a scrappy piece of fabric. Let's do that. Scrappy piece of fabric. There we go. And just set your machine up. So let me put my foot down on here. So let's choose zigzag on the machine. The stitch length on mine is set at 1.4, and that's too small, so I'm going to take it up to 2.4, and my zigzag width is 3.6. Again, I think that's a little bit too wide, so let's just take that down to let's do 3.4. Let's see how we get on. So do yourself a little tester like I've just done. Have a look at it. I think that looks fine to me. Let's just show you at the front there. You're never going to see it, but I'll give you a little show anyway. But you want to then be consistent all the way along your binding. So we pop that under the machine. Now, because I sort of pre-done this for you, I'm just going to make sure that that's sitting pretty much where I left off. And we're going to just go straight across the binding now. So make sure everything is nice and neat and tidy. So I use my stiletto, and there's a picture of me actually doing this in the pattern. So using your stiletto or something pointy, hold that layer down so it's nice and neat. Let's get rid of the clips, I don't need them. But I'm going to use my stiletto to hold it in place. By doing a zigzag means that you're going to catch everything, and it's all going to be beautifully neat. If you do a straight stitch, which is absolutely fine, you've got to make sure that that straight stitch is pretty much as beautiful on the back as it is on the front, and that is definitely not the easiest thing to do. So doing a little zigzag is absolutely perfect. It's a bit sort of smoking mirrors really. So then you're coming off the bunting now, the last flag, and you're just going to continue along the edge of your binding. So you're not going over the edge as such, you're just joining the two halves together because we've folded this over. Just try and keep those edges together. They might want to wriggle a bit. But once you've made this, I think you'll probably make more, and it'll be lovely hung up in your garden all year. Well, till the end of the summer anyway. So just coming up to the end now, and you want a fairly long end to this, so be aware of that. If whatever length you decide to cut, I think mine was 65 inches. I think I put it in the pattern as 65, but of course that's because I've got the gap between the flags, and obviously you want a bit at both ends to tie onto a fence post or window catches, wherever you're hanging it. I haven't bothered about neatening the ends. You can if you want, if that's something that you feel that you must do. There we are. Do a little back stitch if you want, just to secure it, and then cut your threads. Okay. So there we are. That's our 6th piece of bunting put in place. Let me just cut my ends here because we've got some threads. There we go. Oh, looks glorious. Well, we don't have smoke. So there's our 6 pieces. They're all twisted now. There we go. I'm not sure I'll get these on screen now. So this is the one this is the one we did. So there is our 6 pieces of bunting now. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this so much. I hope you do too. Just absolutely so pretty when I look at them really close up. Let me see if I can get them all I won't be able to hold them, will I? But they look really pretty. Really lovely. Look at that. Gorgeous. So that is our lovely bunting, which is called Alice. I hope you enjoy making it. The process that we've done with the Bonder web and all the free motion is going to be identical for the mat, which is this one here, and that's called Aggie, and a larger version on the cushion, which is called Anna. And we've got the lovely fold over with the buttons here, and that's all done on machine, the buttons. I'm going to show you how to do it. So that is the first one done of the set of 3. You might see this in a different order, but for me this is the first one done on the set of 3, and that's Alice. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope we make loads.